When I found the lace underwear in my husband's pocket, I wasn't shocked. Not entirely. 7 years of marriage, and clues like that had become familiar, like a recurring stain on a white shirt, a strange perfume lingering around his collar, a message he deleted quickly when I entered the room. This time, it was tucked in the pocket of the dress pants he wore over the weekend. Thin red lace, not mine, not something I'd ever choose. My husband walked into the laundry room. His eyes brushed past me, past the underwear, and landed on the shelf behind me. No excuses, no panicked blinking. Instead, he raised an eyebrow, a small, confident gesture. He reached for the plastic vase on the shelf. "Go ahead and smash it," he said, voice calm, almost cheerful, like he was inviting me into a game we'd played before. He handed me the vase without hesitation. Completely natural. I looked at it. My mind flipped through the past. Those times I screamed, threw glasses at the wall, let the sound of shattering drown out the fire in my chest. The times I cried and yelled, only to see him stand there, still, waiting for me to burn out. But this time, I didn't feel the fire. I just stood there, holding the underwear, eyes slowly scanning the room. That's when I realized. Everything fragile in this house, the glass cups, the porcelain bowls, the little trinkets I once adored, was gone, replaced with plastic, stainless steel, things that couldn't break. My husband had prepared. He had predicted my anger, every scream, every throw. He had turned this house into an unbreakable fortress, just like the way he viewed our marriage. Something solid, something indestructible. But this time, I calmly placed the vase back on the shelf. I said, voice light like morning air, "Let's get a divorce." When he heard those three words, Michael froze, just for a moment. Then he let out a laugh, short and dry, completely joyless. "Oh yeah? You got tired of the drama, so now you're trying a new trick?" He tilted his head, his eyes glinting with confidence, like he could see straight through me. "Who put that idea in your head? Your best friend?" He stood there, hands in his pockets, so relaxed it made me want to crush the vase in my hand. He was so sure I would never leave. 7 years, through every affair, every time I screamed, every time I forgave. He'd gotten used to me staying. Even now, with the word divorce out of my mouth, he didn't believe it. Not even for a second. When I stayed silent, Michael rubbed his temple, a lazy, almost bored gesture. He stood up, walked over to the corner of the living room, grabbed a cigarette from the pack on the coffee table, and lit it. The flame from the lighter flickered briefly. He leaned halfway against the wall, white smoke curling up, spiraling, clouding over his cold, unblinking eyes that were staring straight at the plastic vase, still in my hand. I don't like him smoking. Michael knows that. He rarely smokes indoors, always out on the balcony or in the backyard, like a small sliver of respect he still held for me. But now, he did it on purpose. Lit the cigarette right in front of me. Let the smoke drift into our shared space. He was provoking me. He was used to how I handled his cheating, dragging everything in the house out to smash, letting rage wash over it all until I collapsed and things went back to normal, like nothing ever cracked. "All right then, when?" Michael asked. His voice soft, almost playful, like he was asking what I wanted for dinner. He took a long drag, smoke floating lazily between us like a curtain. I looked at him, at how he leaned against the wall, tall and confident, like he still had it all under control. But I also saw the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth, a tiny sign he didn't realize he was giving away. He wasn't as sure as he wanted me to think. For 7 years, I'd handled my emotions through rage, throwing glasses, smashing anything breakable, as if doing that would erase the wounds he left behind. And Michael, he handled me the same way. Let me explode, let me vent, then waited for me to tire out and come back. But today, as I stood here, I realized something that chilled me to the core. The wounds on my body, The countless scars from all those forgiven betrayals. They never really healed. The surface might have closed, but underneath, the flesh was still torn, still hurting. And I was still clinging to a marriage he believed was unbreakable. Was it worth it? No marriage is unbreakable. I walked over to the trash bin next to the washing machine, calmly tossed the lace underwear in, watched it land among crumpled bits of garbage. I opened the washer, pulled out all the clothes, piece by piece. In the pile, I found Michael's white shirt, a faint red lipstick mark still smudged on the collar, not completely washed out. I gripped the sleeve, felt the smooth cotton in my hand, then turned to look at him. "One word at a time," I said. "Today." Michael's expression froze, just for a rare flicker. But quickly, he regained his composure, flicked ash onto the floor. "All right," he said, voice flat, like agreeing to take out the trash. "I'll go change." He walked past me, cigarette still glowing between his fingers. Before turning away, he paused, gave me a faint smile. "Don't forget to hang the clothes up to dry, okay? You know how much I hate damp laundry in the rainy season." To Michael, divorce was just another chore, like airing out clothes or choosing dinner. He didn't take it seriously. He didn't take me seriously. He went upstairs, his footsteps steady on the wooden floor, confident, like he knew I'd change my mind. I stood there, in the laundry room, still holding the shirt with the lipstick stain, staring at the plastic vase on the shelf, gleaming under the light like a reminder of everything fake in this house. Michael didn't know. I didn't need time to think. I was already very, very calm. The whole world knew I loved Michael Hayes to the point of madness. Ever since I was little, I'd play house and cry my heart out demanding to be his one and only bride. I'd run to the grown-ups, screaming and throwing a fit, forcing them to stand in as fake officiants, tears streaming down my cheeks while my smile lit up the room. As I grew older, I became the most possessive girl by Michael's side, monitoring every love letter he got, tearing open each envelope, reading every line, crossing out words of affection from other girls like they were threats to me. Then one time, Michael liked a girl. I still remember the look in his eyes when he talked about her. But because I existed, she turned down his confession. I saw him standing at the edge of the park, watching her link arms with another guy, his face weighed down with a deep sadness I had never seen before. For the first time, he was furious with me, his voice cold like a blade. "Lauren, you make me sick!" he shouted, eyes blazing with anger. "Can you just leave me alone?" I cautiously stepped closer, reached for his hand, trying to comfort him, my voice trembling. "Michael, but I'm still here for you, right?" But he shoved my hand away, pushed me hard. The back of my head slammed against a tree trunk, tearing open a deep gash that started bleeding. I saw Michael panic. For the first time in my life, his eyes shook when he looked at me. "Lauren, are you okay?" "Does it hurt?" he asked, voice breaking, his hand hovering over my shoulder, but afraid to grip it. I gave him a toothy smile, reached behind my head, brought my hand forward. It was covered in bright red blood. "Still," I said weakly. "Michael, don't worry, I'm fine." He stared at my hand, horrified, face pale. I forced a smile, even as the dizziness kicked in. You're not sad anymore, right?" Michael froze, his hand tightening around mine, his face flashing through a storm of emotions. Anger, regret, and something I couldn't name. He tried to say something, but before he could, I passed out from the blood loss. From that day on, Michael was never cold toward me again. He got used to me always being there, following him like a shadow. When the Hayes family hit rock bottom, when everyone turned their backs on them, I was the only one who stayed. I begged my parents to take out nearly $1 million, every last cent, to help Michael survive the storm. When Michael worked himself to exhaustion on a project, I stepped in, prepared the documents, wrote the pitch, stood in front of that noisy conference room filled with the smell of coffee and paperwork. Middle-aged men with big bellies smirked at me. "Miss Davis, if you want to support President Hayes, sure, why don't you pitch us 2 ideas?" I took a deep breath and presented everything, my voice shaky, but I didn't stop. Michael gripped my hand under the table, but they burst into laughter. Miss Davis is indeed the famously loyal assistant, one of them sneered. How about this? No need to present anything. Just stay for a little private discussion with us, and I'll hand this project to Mr. Hayes. How's that? Isn't it true you'll do anything for Mr. Hayes? The bald one chimed in, smirking. Michael shot up and punched the guy square in the face, stood in front of me like a goddamn shield. In that moment, I felt my heart melt into pieces. That night, Michael sat crouched in a corner of the office, face dripping with sweat, eyes exhausted but burning. He looked at me and said firmly, Lauren Davis, let's get married. His voice then was so strong. Just like now, when he stands in the living room, cigarette burning between his fingers, smoke swirling around him, convinced I'd never leave him. He thinks if he just says the word, I'd never say no. And the truth is, 7 years ago, he was absolutely right. I dragged my suitcase into my parents' house. My mother, still groggy from sleep, opened her bedroom door, her silver hair messy under the hallway light. When she saw me, her eyes widened, glittering with surprise. Lauren, it's so late. What are you doing here? I gave a faint smile, rolled the suitcase into the corner of the room, and tried to keep my voice light. Mom, aren't you happy to see me? She shook her head and stepped closer, her eyes scanning me. It's not that. Her eyes suddenly widened, voice rising as if something had clicked. Since you married Michael, you've never spent a night away from him. Remember my last birthday? I begged you to stay the night. And what did you say? You said you had to leave early to run Michael's bath. You didn't want to keep him waiting, she paused, took a breath, then continued, her voice sharper. And there was another time. I lowered my head, heat rushing to my ears. Stop! I cut in, my voice small but firm, like I needed to halt the flood of memories crashing in. Mom glared at me, jabbing a finger at my forehead in that all-too-familiar way that still startled me. Can't handle even a little now? After all the times you've done this over the years? She sighed, voice softening like she was retelling an old story. You've been clinging to Michael since you were a child. Embarrassed, I squatted down and opened my suitcase. The zipper echoed sharply through the quiet room. My mother stood there, eyes still on me, then suddenly glanced at the suitcase, and her eyes flew wide in alarm. Don't tell me! You've run away from home? I looked up and nodded, my voice flat but heavy as lead. Yeah. Michael and we're divorced. My mother froze, her mouth slightly open, like I had just dropped a bomb in the middle of the room. She said nothing, just stared at me, her eyes caught between shock and worry. I looked down, rummaging for my pajamas, trying to avoid that look, trying to pretend like saying we're divorced was just some throwaway line. She came closer and sat beside me, her voice nervous. Lauren, are you okay? I know things between you and Michael have always been complicated, but are you sure you want a divorce? I shot up, face shifting, lips pressed tight, ready to speak. But Mom hurried ahead. If something's wrong, talk it out. You're hot-headed as it is. She shook her head, her eyes filled with both scolding and hope. He loves you so much. He can't really want to divorce you. Please, think it through. She quickly reached into my robe pocket, grabbed my phone, dialed Michael's number, and held it out to me. Lauren. Don't overreact. On the other end, a tiny sound, barely audible, rippled through. The rustle of blankets, soft but sharp, like a needle piercing my ear. After 7 years with him, I knew better than anyone. I knew exactly what that sound meant. My hand lifted to take the phone, but stopped halfway, frozen. I didn't dare lift it to my ear. I didn't dare hear what was coming. Michael, probably thinking I had answered, switched to speakerphone. His voice filled the room, calm, smug, echoing in every corner. Lauren Davis, already regretting it, huh? He gave a cold laugh, sharp like a blade slicing the air. Guess I really overestimated you. Couldn't even last one night. I'm not coming home. I'm out of town on business, Call yourself a ride. The flick of a lighter snapped through, dry and piercing. I could almost picture Michael lighting a cigarette, smoke swirling, his face appearing in my mind. Confident, arrogant, eyes glittering like he'd just won a game. Just stay home and be good, he said, like he was granting me some kind of favor. I'll be back soon to cancel the divorce before it's too late. The call ended abruptly. The beeping tone stabbed into the silence like a final cut. He didn't wait for my reply. Didn't need to hear what I had to say. He was certain I'd crawl back, just like every other time. Beneath the soft yellow light of the living room, my mother turned around, her body suddenly trembling uncontrollably. Her shoulders shook, over and over, like she was holding back a tidal wave of emotion. I stepped forward and hugged her, whispering, "Mom, why are you this worried?" She couldn't hold it in anymore. Her voice cracked. "I'm doing all this because of you. Every time you two fight, you always end up hurting yourself. I've been so scared." She turned and hugged me tightly, each word etched into the air. "Lauren, if you really can't leave Michael, then your father and I will have to accept it. All we can do is try to find ways to help you suffer a little less. Try to be the glue holding you two together." She wiped her tears, pushed me toward the door, her voice urgent. "Enough. Don't be angry anymore. Go back. When Michael comes home, everything will be fine again." She stood in the corner of the room, half her face swallowed by shadow. I could see every tangled emotion on her face, the endurance of Michael's years of humiliation, the anger she'd buried, the heartbreak that I wouldn't wake up, and the deep love she still held for her daughter. In that moment, it all hit me. Turns out, in my obsession with Michael, the wounds weren't mine alone. The ones who loved me the most, my parents, they carried their own scars, silently hurting because of me. I was so damn foolish. For a man who didn't deserve me, I wasted years of my youth. Not just mine, but theirs too. The ones who gave up everything for me. I gripped my mother's hand tightly, our fingers laced together, cold but steady. Word by word, I said, without trembling, "Mom, I really want to divorce Michael." She looked at me, her eyes holding a flicker of doubt, like what I said was just a passing breeze, not enough to shake the faith she still had in my crazy love for him. 7 years, I had poured everything into Michael Hayes, loved him blindly, sacrificed it all. Suddenly saying I wanted a divorce. No one believed it, not even her. But she had always supported me, even if her support came wrapped in worry. When I told her I wanted to join the family company to learn, she convinced Dad to arrange a position for me. They were afraid I'd act impulsively, so they only let me into the admin department, not the project teams. I accepted it, thinking everything takes time. I worked hard, quietly, and waited. 10 days flew by. Michael had returned from his business trip, but we didn't reunite in that plastic-filled house of ours. It was at my father's company. He came with his assistant to discuss a potential partnership, and I, as an admin employee, was assigned to bring coffee into the meeting room. I pushed the door open with the tray in hand. Then I saw her sitting right beside Michael, so close their shoulders touched. Jessica Moore, red lips, long flowing black hair, a crescent-shaped smile. As she spoke, she leaned in toward Michael like she wanted to crawl into his lap, her eyes sparkling with an intimacy that didn't bother hiding. That face, I couldn't forget it, no matter how many years passed. Jessica Moore, the girl who almost became Michael's girlfriend all those years ago. So it turns out, during all this time, the one by his side had been her. I calmly set the coffee down on the table, my hand steady, even though my heart felt crushed. Jessica reached for the cup, but fumbled, and the burning liquid spilled onto the back of her hand. She screamed, voice shrill, her face twisted in pain. Michael jumped to his feet, shoved my shoulder hard, his eyes cold as steel. "Lauren Davis, are you stalking me?" I clutched the other cup in my hand, the heat seeping through my fingertips. "I'm not," I replied, my voice calm but sharp like a blade. "Did you forget this is my family's company?" Michael's brows knitted together, his tone hardening. "Save the excuses! I just got back, and here you are, If that's not stalking, what is it? He stepped closer, eyes glinting with smug arrogance. I already told you, just stay home and behave. I'll be back soon to cancel the divorce. No need to pull stunts like this, looking at his entitled expression, as if he still had everything under control. I suddenly felt exhausted. I didn't want to argue anymore. I exhaled, shook my head lightly. Think what you want. I turned to leave. I couldn't stand another second of the romantic air between Michael and Jessica. But his voice snapped behind me, cold and cutting. Lauren, stop embarrassing yourself and go home. He paused, then added, dripping with mockery. I already had my assistant bring back the dirty laundry from my trip. Wash it. That's your job. That's what you're best at, in front of everyone in the meeting room. His icy eyes pinned me down, leaving no dignity behind. I stood there, feeling like I'd been stripped bare in front of a crowd. But instead of pain, what rose inside me was a cold fury. I curled my lips into a mocking smile. Michael, this is my family's company. I work here. How is that stalking? You say I'm good at laundry. Then what are you good at? Cheating? Sneaking around with assistants? Or maybe cozying up to college girls? Michael's eyes flickered with shock, like he couldn't believe I dared to say that. He pointed a finger at me, voice shaking. You... I instantly slapped his hand away, my voice razor sharp. We've already filed for divorce. Have your girlfriend do your laundry? Michael stared at me, stunned, like he was seeing a different Lauren Davis for the first time. Not the girl who used to cling to him, not the one who cried for him. His temples twitched, his eyes darkened, voice lower. Lauren, do you even realize what you're saying? I nodded, calm. I know exactly. He stiffened, standing upright, like he was waiting for me to fold, waiting for me to apologize. But as seconds passed, all he got was my resolute silence. Jessica suddenly spoke up, her voice soft, filled with faint hurt. Miss Davis, you misunderstood. Mr. Hayes and I just have a professional relationship. She tugged at my sleeve. If you're upset because of me, I'm sorry. If it would make you feel better, I'll quit. Her pitiful act made Michael explode. His eyes flooded with waves of fury, deep and murky. He took a deep breath, stared directly at me. Lauren, after all these years, you haven't changed a bit. Anyone who gets near me, you chase them off with jealousy. How long do you plan to be this selfish? He paused, voice dropping into disappointment. Back then, it was you who pushed Jessica away with this same nonsense, wasn't it? My face went pale. I hurried to deny it. That's not true. Back then, I only said one thing to Jessica Moore. Nothing more. I never believed she'd actually choose another man. I knew Michael truly loved her. I had even thought of giving up, of letting him go so he could be happy. But Michael never gave me the chance to explain. Lauren, you better hold yourself together until the divorce is finalized, he said, voice like ice. Don't come crying to me at the last minute, begging to go to the lawyer's office together. He stepped closer, eyes sharp as knives. I'll be busy leading the new tech development project in Silicon Valley. I don't have time to play house with you. Without waiting for my reply, Michael turned and walked off, his footsteps loud and final. I stood frozen, ears ringing, overwhelmed by a heartbreak I'd never known before. So all these years, Michael had blamed me. Blamed me for making Jessica Moore, the woman he truly loved, leave him. Blamed me, the foolish girl who always stood in his way. But he forgot. I didn't just block his love life. I stood in front of his rivals, his enemies, the insults he never had to hear, the obstacles he never faced alone. I closed my eyes, drew in a breath, feeling my heart shatter, yet no tears came. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, the icy air flooding into my chest. When I opened them again, without hesitation, I picked up my phone, my fingers sliding quickly across the screen as I sent a message to my father. That tech project in Silicon Valley? Could I be the one to handle it? I sat there, desk lamp casting light over the stack of project documents piled in front of me. I read through every page, every line. When I finally looked up, it was nearly morning. The window was wide open, cold wind rushing in, brushing against my shoulders, making my whole body shiver. I pulled my coat tighter, but the cold wasn't just from the wind, it was from inside. My phone lit up. A new message from Michael. Sent an hour ago, like the tense showdown in the meeting room earlier that day had never even happened. Just one short, blunt line. Working late, not coming home tonight. I stared at the words, a faint flicker of sarcasm in my eyes. 10 days since his business trip ended, and Michael hadn't returned to our home once. He didn't know I had moved out, didn't know my suitcase now sat in the living room at my parents' house. He didn't know, and maybe he didn't care. Then another message from him appeared. Just 3 words. It's getting cold. I could almost hear his voice through the screen, that casual tone of his, like he was just sending something offhand without expecting a reply. But those 3 words pierced me, not because they hurt, but because they dragged me back to all the years before. Every time the weather turned cold, I was always the first to change the bedsheets to thick, warm cotton. If Michael stayed late at work underdressed, I'd rush over with a heavy coat. One year, on a freezing winter day, I fell on the way to his office. When I arrived, limping, my knee was torn open, blood soaking through my pants. One of Michael's coworkers noticed and asked, "Lauren, are you okay?" But Michael just frowned and said coldly, "I told you, stop coming to the office so often. Just go home." Back then, I foolishly thought he was worried about me, concerned that it was late and cold, and that a girl out alone might be in danger. I smiled, nodded, and quietly left, even though my leg shook with pain at every step. But now, thinking back, I finally understood. He wasn't worried about me. He just wanted to protect the last bit of space that was his, a place I was never allowed to enter. My phone chimed again, sharp and brief. Michael had sent a single question mark. I tried to recall what he was wearing today when I saw him in the meeting room. A t-shirt? Long sleeves? A blazer? In my mind, his figure was just a dark, blurry mass, like an ink-smudged painting. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't remember. The man who once lived deep inside my heart, whose every gesture and habit I used to know like they were carved into my bones, now was just a dusty silhouette, one that could disappear with a single wave of the hand. Turns out, letting go of a bad habit isn't as hard as I once thought. I kept scrolling through my phone. A new post from Jessica Moore popped up on her profile. I'd added her as a friend years ago, a naive move that had now become her favorite way to flaunt things in front of me. Cold snap out of nowhere. So grateful our thoughtful boss treated the whole team to hot coffee, followed by a photo of a steaming coffee cup and a thick folded jacket placed neatly next to it. In the comments, a college friend of hers had written, "Jessica, are you sure he bought coffee for the whole team? Or was it just for one person and the rest were a cover?" I stared at the jacket in the picture, and my heart clenched. It was from a brand Michael loved, a matching couples set, the women's version in light pink, the men's in dark gray. Jessica was wearing the pink one, and Michael had to be the one with the gray. Calmly, I tapped the screen and blocked Jessica from my friend list. My finger slid across the glass, smooth and final. But right after that, my phone vibrated. A call from an unknown number. A hurried delivery man's voice came through. "Miss Davis? You're not home?" I knocked, but no one answered. "I've got a package here ordered by Mr. Hayes. A pink windbreaker that requires your signature." I froze, my hand still on the phone. A pink jacket. Wasn't that the exact same one Jessica just posted on social media? Michael, what was he trying to do? My brows furrowed. I hesitated for just a split second, then said, "I don't live there anymore." "I can't sign. Return it." The delivery man went quiet, then hung up. Half an hour later, my phone buzzed again. It was Michael. His voice was low, laced with barely contained anger, almost through gritted teeth. "Lauren, what the hell are you trying to pull? I've been away on business for days, working nonstop, and I come home to an empty house. Do you know how that feels? Tell me, what do you want me to do? My mom, standing beside me, could hear his voice through the speaker. She took my hand, eyes full of concern. But I, in turn, squeezed her hand even tighter, my voice calmer and more resolute than it had ever been. Michael, I didn't walk out. We're divorced, and it's perfectly normal that I packed up and left. On the other end of the line, a loud crash rang out. Sharp, piercing, like a glass shattering against the floor. That sound used to be mine, the way I'd release my rage, find some strange sense of relief in breaking things. Now it had become Michael's voice, his rage, his blame. Lauren! Michael's voice suddenly spiked, then dropped heavy like lead. After a series of ragged breaths, he demanded, furious and disbelieving, "Are you actually serious?" I found myself wanting to laugh, a bitter laugh that swelled quietly in my chest. I'd already moved out. The divorce papers were signed. Yet he still thought I was just mad, just throwing a childish tantrum to get his attention. Maybe Michael had never ever imagined that I, Lauren Davis, would leave him. But now, I really wanted to leave him. In Michael's voice, I heard something unfamiliar, a flicker of confusion, a tiny crack in his shell of confidence. Lauren Davis, what game are you playing? Just because of Jessica? You... I cut him off, my voice cold and sharp. Michael, see you in court. I hung up. Didn't wait for another word. My mom was still beside me, her eyes filled with concern, but she said nothing. She just squeezed my hand tighter. In the quiet, I felt a strange lightness, like I had finally set down a burden I'd been carrying on my shoulders for 7 long years. Act 8. Since that day, Michael and I hadn't had any contact. The phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls, as if the final string between us had been cut. But through mutual friends on social media, I still saw traces of him, or more accurately, of him and Jessica Moore. Her posts were like tiny blades, deliberately flaunting, deliberately reminding me that she now stood where I once did. Once, Jessica posted about ruining Michael's favorite white shirt, with a smug caption. Though it was precious, it's nothing compared to me. How could he blame me? Another time, she messed up a small project at work and went online again. Her tone mock humble. I still have so much to learn, but thankfully, I have a mentor to guide me. Each post was a smirk, as if she were standing right in front of me, waving her so-called victory in my face. I scrolled past, didn't comment, didn't react, just quietly blocked every old emotion that tried to resurface. Then one day, Jessica showed up at my family's company to discuss a collaboration. I was organizing documents in the meeting room when she walked in, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She made a point to pass by me, stopping just briefly to tilt her head so the rose-shaped pendant on her necklace could catch the light. Global Limited Edition, she said. Birthday gift from Mr. Hayes. I glanced at the necklace, then let out a short, mocking laugh. A limited edition released last year, and Michael just gave it to you this year? Jessica's face froze, her eyes narrowed, her voice rising. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. I just gave her necklace a dismissive look and turned to leave. I remembered that gift clearly. 2 years ago, Michael had planned to give it to me for my birthday. But I didn't like roses, so I told him to return it and get something else. I didn't know if he forgot to send it back or kept it on purpose to give to someone else. Either way, the gift Jessica was proudly showing off was nothing more than trash I'd already thrown away. Maybe Michael didn't love Jessica the way I once thought. Suddenly, Jessica grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Her face twisted, voice trembling with anger. Lauren, what did you mean by that? Say it clearly. I frowned, shook her off, my voice cold. I don't owe you an explanation. You! Jessica glared at me, her emotions spilling over as she practically shouted, Lauren, don't think you can hold on to Michael forever. I'm telling you, he promised to marry me. I froze for a moment, then curled my lips into a dry smile. Really? He promised you that? I stepped closer, looked her straight in the eyes. Then did he also tell you that I was the one who filed for divorce, and he didn't want it? Jessica's eyes went wide. Her face turned ghostly pale like she'd just been slapped. I turned to a nearby assistant and said calmly but firmly, "Drop it. I've already got a better plan for the Silicon Valley Tech project." Jessica's eyes shook, completely drained of color. As Michael's assistant, she knew exactly how important that project was to him. This wasn't one of the minor deals she'd messed up. It was a big opportunity, a turning point. But I didn't care. I walked out of the meeting room. The waiting period before the court hearing had ended. At 8:30 a.m., I stood outside the courtroom door. I looked at my watch, the minute hand moving slowly, but Michael's figure still hadn't appeared. I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, my finger sliding to his number. It had been a long time since I'd initiated a call to Michael. He answered, his voice trembling, carrying a raw excitement he didn't bother to hide. "What is it, Lauren? Have you changed your mind?" I frowned, cut him off, my tone firm. "Michael, do you still cling to such ridiculous illusions? It's nearly 9 o'clock. If you don't show up, I won't hesitate to file the lawsuit myself." I paused, my voice dropping lower. "I'll repeat what I've always said. I have never been playing with you." I thought about all the times Michael lost control, all the times he ignored my efforts, treating my madness in love as a given, even despising it. This relationship had died long ago. I just hadn't had the courage to bury it. Finally, Michael appeared. I almost didn't recognize him. In my memory, he had always been immaculate. Pressed suits no matter how early, hair combed neatly even after late nights, choosing to sit silently through a drunken night rather than let anyone see him undone. But today, the high-end suit on his body was wrinkled, slouched off his shoulders like he'd worn it for a week. Stubble shadowed his mouth, his eyes sunken and tired. His frame was thin, unexpectedly matching the image of the young man from my memories, the boy I had once loved madly. But as I looked at him, I realized something. In the time away from him, I no longer longed for him. I had truly let go. In the courtroom, I signed the papers, my handwriting decisive, without hesitation. Michael stood across from me, holding the pen, but his fingers trembled, unable to lift it. He gripped it tight, his fingertips turning white, as if trying to cling to something slipping from his grasp. "Are you all right?" the court clerk asked gently, her tone careful. Michael bowed his head low, his messy hair hiding his eyes. His hands kept shaking, the pen wobbling over the paper. After a long silence, his voice came out hoarse, almost a whisper. "Lauren, do you really have to divorce me?" "Sign," I said. Just one word in my language, cold and short. He turned his back to me, his shoulders trembling. I couldn't see his face, but when he signed, the last stroke of his signature dragged out endlessly, like he couldn't bear to lift the pen from the paper. But eventually, it ended. The signature was complete, and so was our marriage. Outside the courthouse, Michael suddenly spoke, "Let me take you home." I hadn't even refused when a sleek black Lincoln pulled up in front of us. Jessica stepped out. She walked straight up to Michael. "Michael, I came to pick you up." Michael's brows knitted, a flash of visible irritation passing through his eyes, but Jessica didn't seem to notice. She took a huge bouquet of red roses from the back seat and held it out to him, her voice brimming with devotion. "Michael, from 22 to 32, we've lost 10 years. I don't want to lose any more. Be my boyfriend." Her eyes flicked to me, full of provocation, as if declaring victory. I looked down at my phone, checking my rideshare app. The driver was still 5 minutes away. I stood there calmly, silently watching the confession unfold in front of me. Michael's face grew darker by the second. He didn't answer, his hand clenching the bouquet, but not taking it. Jessica began to panic, stepped closer, tried to force the flowers into his hand, her voice shaking. "Michael!" My car arrived, stopping at the curb. Before getting in, I turned to Michael. "Congratulations!" His face instantly went black, his eyes blazing with rage he couldn't control. "Lauren!" he called, his voice tight, like he was trying to hold me back. I closed the car door, the sound cutting off every word he might say. Through the window, I saw Michael running a few steps after the car. Jessica, trying to follow, was accidentally shoved aside by him, her bouquet scattering across the sidewalk. He didn't stop, didn't look back at her. He only kept his eyes locked on me. But the car was already moving, and Michael stopped, standing frozen in the street. His figure looked lonely, cold under the pale sunlight. He watched my car for a long, long time, as if waiting for me to turn back. But he didn't know, and would never know, that I truly no longer wanted to look back. The next time I heard about Michael was when he came to my father's company to bid on the Silicon Valley tech project. The moment I walked in, our eyes met. Michael shot up from his chair, his deep black eyes flashing with barely concealed excitement, like he had just found something long lost. I simply nodded, calm, distant, a purely professional greeting. A flicker of disappointment crossed his face, so brief almost no one would notice. Throughout the meeting, I maintained a professional demeanor, presenting each point in the plan with an even, emotionless tone. But Michael's eyes never left me, dark, intense, as if filled with 1,000 words, just waiting for a crack to spill through. The meeting ended, and once again, we declined to work with Michael. He stood up quickly, voice rushed. "Lauren, I want to talk to you." I paused, turned, and motioned for a colleague to close the conference room door. The door shut, leaving just the two of us in silence. "Whatever you want to say it here," I said coldly, my eyes unwavering. Michael stood stiff, his face shifting through countless emotions, hesitation, conflict, as if he were fighting with himself. I started to lose patience, arms crossed in front of my chest. "Mr. Hayes, I don't have time to waste here with you." As I turned to leave, Michael suddenly grabbed my wrist, the grip strong enough to make me stop. His voice was low, hoarse. "Lauren, I let Jessica go." I stood still, watching him, waiting. He continued, voice trembling. "I hired her as my assistant because she was struggling financially at the time. I was just helping out, because of the past, nothing more. About the project, I know it was her fault, on her behalf. I want to apologize to you." I couldn't help but laugh, a short, bitter laugh. "Mr. Hayes," I said, emphasizing each word, "you said there was nothing between you two." "Then what gives you the right to apologize on her behalf?" Michael froze, his eyes reddening like he'd just been slapped. I tried to shake his hand off, but he tightened his grip. His fingers trembled, his gaze filled with regret, guilt, and a silent plea. His voice dropped to a whisper, as if afraid to shatter something fragile. "Lauren, I regret it." That day, Michael made me a lot of promises. He said he wouldn't cheat again, not with any woman. He said he would focus on our family, love me with all his heart, the way I once loved him, wildly and without conditions. A few months ago, maybe I would have softened. Maybe I would have believed him, forgiven him, fallen right back into the spiral of empty promises. But after being away from Michael, I realized just how vast the world really was. I didn't need to trap myself in the small cage of one man. I could pursue a smoother path, a wider life, where I could finally be myself, not someone's shadow. I turned Michael down. I looked him straight in the eye, my voice steady. "Michael, only without you have I found who I really am. What is it you truly want? Me? Or just someone who loved you madly, obeyed you unconditionally?" He stood still, the last flicker in his eyes extinguishing like a candle snuffed out by wind. "Why?" he asked, voice hoarse, almost broken. "Michael," I said, each word clear, "from the start, I was the one who was wrong. I tried to teach you how to love someone, but your selfishness, you'll never learn." I turned and walked out of the conference room. Michael didn't follow. Through the frosted glass, I saw his figure standing there, unmoving, like a shattered statue beneath cold light. The Silicon Valley tech project progressed smoothly. Lines of code flowed across the screen like a quiet river, carrying shimmering growth metrics, and in the end, I claimed the greatest victory since the day I stepped into the company. The whispers that once followed me behind my back vanished like morning mist under the sunlight, leaving behind a wide open space where I stood tall, my eyes no longer cast downward but lifted, receiving genuine handshakes and warm smiles from my colleagues. At the celebration dinner, the clinking of glasses echoed beneath the soft golden lights of the restaurant. I raised a glass of champagne, the bubbles fizzing gently on my tongue, and for the first time in 7 years, I smiled. Truly smiled. A free smile, no longer shadowed by anyone. As my gaze drifted toward the restaurant's glass windows, I saw Jessica working at the cafe across the street, busy with a tray of drinks in hand. The late afternoon sun streamed through the cafe's window, illuminating her face. Lipstick faded, hair pulled up hastily, no longer carrying the gleam of her former arrogance. When our eyes met, Jessica fumbled, wringing her hands into her apron, her face flushed with embarrassment and awkwardness, like she'd been caught in a secret she could no longer hide. She quickly turned away, her steps unsteady, the tray nearly tipping. I just smiled faintly, didn't follow her, didn't say a word, just turned back to the party, took another sip of champagne, and felt the sweet acidity wash through me, like a river of freedom passing through wounds that had already healed. In the days that followed, I began new routines, simple and peaceful ones, like making a cup of green tea in my little apartment each morning, the sunlight slipping through thin curtains, touching the forgotten books on my shelf, or spending lazy afternoons wandering the park, sitting on a stone bench, listening to the leaves rustle as if whispering wind secrets, no longer worried about unread messages, no longer waiting for someone to return. Change came quietly, through everyday things, a brush of hair in the mirror, no longer checking if it suited anyone else, a confident step down the street, no longer looking over my shoulder, a deep, dreamless sleep, free and light, repeating the rhythm of peace, repeating the soft reminder to myself that letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning of new dawns, where I'm no longer a shadow of the past, but the light of my own making. Carrying real peace, because once the heart learns to love itself, every other door opens, and the world, wider than ever before, will whisper, "Keep walking, girl. Your freedom is the peace of the universe."